Chapter 5. Stefan was driving north with music from the radio in the rented Jeep blaring. The music, along with the wind, provided enough sound to drown out the hum that was getting louder in his ears. He focused on the road and thought how lucky he was to be alive. The inspector for the company formulated a simple theory pertaining to the incident on the plane. One of the containers holding a corrosive substance cracked open, spilling some of the contents onto the floor as well as the straps that held the other cargo in place. When one of the straps broke, a series of heavy containers fell, one of which hit the area weakened by the corrosive liquid, puncturing the fuselage. Once that happened, the decompression pulled some of the cargo out, widening the hole. The majority of what fell from the plane was the caustic solution, of which Phil was overseeing the shipment. Some of the chemical fertilizer spilled as well, but not enough for Stefan to remain at the cargo station and postpone his vacation. Before he left the airport, Phil was already on a flight back to Ohio. What none of the people connected to the incident knew, because they simply would not have the attention to detail to understand these fine points of information, was that the caustic solution, while plummeting through the air, came in contact with some of the prototype fertilizer, and an unforeseen chemical reaction occurred in the air. Raining down upon the desert of New Mexico, the chemical eroded specific minerals, breaking them down into component elements which could be used as nutrients by plants that otherwise would not be able to thrive on that soil. The plants flourished, and a specific herbivore species of lizard was able to consume the plant and in turn also flourish. The plant, providing a new type of nutrient source to the animal, allowed for a progressive genetic mutation of the animal, bringing into being a new species of the lizard that would not have otherwise existed. Stefan did not know of that while he drove, but if he did, his smile may have been a little wider. His face was gruff while he headed towards Sedona. He had an hour to go, and his appointment with Nikki Bianco-Randis was to start in just over an hour. He had called her once his cargo was accepted, and he was cleared for his vacation. He looked up her number in a local phone directory in the residential rather than commercial section. When he spoke with her, she verified that she was the psychic Phil had spoken about, although she preferred to be called a healer specializing in the conduction of subtle energies. "Hey, whatever," Stefan said. "I was wondering how I can book some of your time for a reading, or a session, or whatever you call it." "I have time today," she said, "if you can get here in the next 2 hours. Is that all right with your schedule?" "It'll have to be if you want some answers about the sounds of the emanations." He was silent for a moment. "How did you... Your outer voice isn't mentioning it, but your energy is screaming so loud I can hear it through the phone. Why don't you rent a car and head on up? You have my address in the phone book there." "Yep," he said, and tore the page from the book. "Oh, and buy 2 or more pairs of sunglasses before you drive," she said. "Why?" he asked. "You'll understand why when you are a little more than halfway here," she said, and promptly hung up the phone. As he drove along the sun-baked highway, his eyes began to play tricks on him. At first, it seemed like the ripples of heat from the road were simply clear, but they began to change color and form into strange shapes, retain both color and contour while they rose through the air, only to spread apart as they reached cooler temperatures. He did his best to ignore these images rising from the ground, refusing to look directly at them, and then realized it might be the sunlight in his environment that caused his eyes to glitch in their abilities. He put on a pair of sunglasses that were on the passenger seat and was happy to see the tinted lenses make the images disappear. He was content, as much as he could be, for the following 20 minutes, and then started seeing the heat ripples again, and watched as they took on different colors and formed into shapes again. After 5 minutes of doing his best to avoid recognition of the shapes, he pulled off the sunglasses, and his eyes seared with pain from what seemed to be an overabundance of light, some shades of which he was certain he had never before experienced. He fought to maintain the direction of the jeep on the road and grabbed another pair of sunglasses. Once he put them on, the pain stopped and the images vanished again. He looked at the other 4 pair on the passenger seat and wondered if they would be enough to get him to his destination. When, on his last pair, he reached the outskirts of Sedona, Arizona, he pulled into a small area of shops, double-parked, and ran in to ask for directions to Nikki's address. He was given a smile from the shopkeeper that eased his throbbing ears. With a clarity of hearing that seemed weird to him in that moment, he wrote down the directions from the shopkeeper, thanked him, and ran out of the store. Outside, the hum of the emanations resumed, and he hurried his way through the set of turns that brought him to the doorstep of Nikki Bianco Randis. She opened the door before his knuckles touched to knock and stepped aside so he could enter. He walked through the doorway, mumbling something about price for the reading, when he was struck by the aroma of sandalwood and sage that was smoldering in holders, wafting together and intoxicating his olfactory receptors enough so much that the hum in his ears greatly diminished. He took off his sunglasses and looked at her, smiling at him. Although he noted her dark hair hanging in long tangles on her shoulders, her slim legs, wide hips, smooth skin that only barely showed any signs of exposure to sun, her breasts unconstrained by a brassiere, and the way her slender neck blended gracefully into her jaw, back at her ears. It was her light blue eyes highlighting her face that captivated his attention. The price is not something for which I am concerned, because it is locked in this world, and what I evoke is connection to what lay beyond, she said. But since I am slightly in this world also, the prices are on the wall behind you. He turned around and noticed the price schedule. As intriguing as the aura purge and chakra alignment sounded, he figured since he had arrived that he should go for the most expensive and logically most thorough treatment, the Celestial Causality Combo for $300. He gave her the money as he asked what it entailed. Since she wasn't trying to sell him on it, she spoke with a direct tone that attempted to explain the process without sounding haughty, snotty, or crazy. First, I'll ask you some questions about your birthday, upbringing, and such to get an idea of your connections to the Celestials. Then I'll run specific tests about how connected to the permeated energies you are, if you can see or consciously manipulate them, stuff that shouldn't take too long. Then I will give you a prescription of actions and ingestions for the next few weeks that will maximize your ability to manifest your own will without wreaking havoc on others in the world, so you can live as you should without accruing karma for how your actions are performed. That's what most people don't get. It isn't what you do necessarily that gives you karma, but how you do what you do. While she said that, she brought him into a secondary room where the same incense was burning, and closed the 3 doors, sealing the room. In the room was a set of cushions arranged around the center of the floor. She motioned for him to sit, and sat as she finished explaining vaguely the process he had purchased. "I take it the sage and sandalwood has stopped the humming," she said. "Yes," he said. "But how do you know?" "Those two ground the senses within earthly parameters. I can guess that you've been told in the past that the sounds of the emanations, the sights of them," she trailed off. "You've seen them?" she asked. "Years ago," he said. "I put myself into a hospital because I thought they were schizophrenic delusions." "So not just on the ride up here?" "No. Although, how would you know that I would see things on the road, that I would need more than one pair of sunglasses to keep the visions at bay?" "I had sensed that you could hear them," she said. "And this area is so very fortified with the base elements of the energies that even skeptics have glimpsed them. The sunglasses were like incense for your eyes, grounding your vision to your normal human limits and expectations." "But I had seen them before," he interjected. "That's what I sensed," she said, tilting her head with a concerned yet gentle smile. "And I am intrigued to discover what manner of being can see the emanations." "What are those emanations?" he asked, wondering why she used the same word he had used years earlier. "They are the tides of energies that are present in our world yet beyond our ability to perceive. You know they are there, though." She shifted in her cross-legged position. "You can feel the wind, but don't see it unless it moves something else along." "What do the emanations move along?" he asked. "All things, through time. They are the resulting patterns from all activity and hence the prime cause of all actions. They are causality and reflect the influence of all entities upon our reality." She spoke with certainty in her voice. "Since we do not know them while in the human experience, we can call them the unknown. They are the forces of the greater plane of organization that give structure and form to our world, ultimate form that includes the pockets of chaos and shapelessness to balance it out." "How can you know these things? I mean, you are human." "I have a limited use of this human body, and not just in the terms of the body's life," she said. "I have more of myself, my tangle of energy and consciousness, in the outer realm." Stefan noticed a fly in the room circling near her. "Since I was born, I've always known that this side of reality most obvious to our senses is not the side I am most concerned with," she continued, as Stefan's eyes started following the fly as it darted through the air around her. "And since I am held in this form, yet mostly on the other side, I have certain abilities that appear to be powers, but are truly nothing more than perceiving the likely chain of events denoted by the flow of energies that are not plainly visible to others." She held out her right hand with her palm up and digits extended. The fly landed on the tip of her upturned index finger. She kept that finger and thumb extended while she curled the others to her palm. The fly had gotten tired and confused from the smoke. She stood up and walked to the window behind her, the fly remaining on her hand. She opened the window and the insect flew from her finger out into the world. She closed the window and ran her finger across a bar of oregano and rose oil soap. There, she's happy now. Stunned by this, Stefan looked at her with amazement. So the emanations are real? He asked. I'm not crazy? You're not crazy, just tuned into them for whatever reason. She sat back down across from him. I'll bet the hospital you put yourself in got you on a regime of medications. Yeah, and that kept me from seeing and hearing them. Yes, but that's like incense and sunglasses. All it does is redirect your energy from the part of you that can sense or manipulate the emanations, and not even effectively. She noticed that he looked quizzically at her. Who knows what your subconscious had your energy do while you weren't aware, she said. How am I supposed to control what I don't even fully understand? He asked, looking down. She placed her hand on his. I will teach you, she said, and he looked at her smiling face with the shining light blue eyes and felt hopeful. But before you learn how to manipulate them, she said, we need to see why you can sense them at all.